Once hailed as Germany's next superstar, Julian Draxler had talent, flair, and hype. But instead of dominating European football, he became a forgotten name. What went wrong? Let's talk about it. And where better to start than where it all began? Julian Draxler's rise at Schalke 04 was nothing short of impressive. On January 15, 2011, at just 17 years old, he made his Bundesliga debut, becoming the fourth youngest player in the league's history and the youngest in Schalke's history. Just 1 week later, he became the second youngest player after Nuri Sahin to ever start a Bundesliga match. But this was more than just a record. It was a clear sign that Schalke had an exceptional talent on their hands. You don't get thrown in at the deep end at that age unless you have something special, and Draxler wasted no time in proving he belonged. On January 25, 2011, he came off the bench in the DFB Pokal quarterfinal against 1 FC Nuremberg. The game was deadlocked in extra time until Draxler seized the moment to play his way into the hearts of Schalke fans. He scored the winning goal with a spectacular strike in the last second, sending Schalke to the semi-finals. Imagine being 17 and already having such a decisive moment in professional football. That was the first proof of his coolness, intelligence, and technical brilliance under pressure. On April 1, 2011, he scored his first Bundesliga goal against FC St. Pauli, solidifying his reputation as a great talent. But what truly put him on the map was the 2011 DFB Pokal final against MSV Duisburg. Schalke dismantled Duisburg with a 5-0 victory, and Draxler opened the goal-scoring festival with a beautiful volley from a distance. Scoring in a major final at 17 years old, that's the stuff stars are made of. His debut season ended with 15 Bundesliga appearances, 1 league goal, 2 goals in the DFB Pokal, and 6 appearances in the Champions League, an impressive record for a teenager. During the 2011-12 season, Draxler became increasingly important for Schalke. He made 30 Bundesliga appearances, mostly on the left side, while Louis Holtby played in central midfield. Despite his young age, he already showed tactical intelligence and versatility. He was not only a strong dribbler in attack, but also possessed game intelligence, vision, and decisive decision-making ability to succeed at the highest level. That season, he scored 2 goals in the Europa League. Schalke increasingly built its midfield around him. In the 2012-13 season, he was no longer just a promising talent, he was one of Schalke's key players. After Holtby's departure and the signing of Michel Bastos, Draxler was able to play more in central midfield, where he flourished. He scored important goals, including one in the spectacular 5-4 victory against Hannover 96 and another in the prestigious Revier Derby against Borussia Dortmund. This particular goal was special not only because of the rivalry, but because it made him the youngest player in the club's history to complete 100 competitive matches for Schalke. It was proof of how quickly he had developed into a central figure. He finished the season as Schalke's top Bundesliga goalscorer, tied with Klaas-Jan Huntelaar with 10 goals. A 19-year-old midfielder tying with one of the league's best strikers. Impressive. He also scored twice in the DFB Pokal and once in the Champions League, a testament to his quality on all stages. With this form, it was only a matter of time before the big clubs came knocking. Borussia Dortmund was looking for a replacement for Mario Götze. English clubs were interested, but Draxler decided to stay loyal to Schalke and extended his contract until 2018. This showed not only loyalty, but also his belief in Schalke's future. In the 2013-14 season, he shone in the Champions League with 2 goals in the group stage against FC Basel, helping Schalke reach the knockout round. Even though his Bundesliga goal tally decreased, his influence on the games remained enormous. Draxler's playing style was unique. He was not a typical winger who only relied on speed. He moved elegantly, almost floating across the field, beating opponents with silky dribbles. But what truly set him apart was his game intelligence, the ability to make the right decisions in tight spaces, his composure in front of goal, and his sense for dangerous positions. He could play on the left, right, or centrally, which made him difficult for defenders to mark. Additionally, he was a creative force who not only scored goals, but also delivered killer passes. But then came the injuries and inconsistency. The 2014-15 season became a torment for him. He made only 10 appearances in all competitions and scored just 2 goals. For a player who was used to making a difference, it was frustrating. and Schalke was increasingly losing touch with the Bundesliga's top teams. In the summer of 2015, it was clear Draxler needed a new challenge. Juventus showed interest, but Schalke rejected their offer. Instead, on the last day of the transfer window, he made a surprising move to VfL Wolfsburg. The departure from Schalke was difficult for him. It was the club that had nurtured him, enabled his breakthrough, and turned him into one of Germany's most exciting talents. But Wolfsburg offered him something Schalke couldn't at the time: Champions League football and the role of an absolute key player. The expectations were enormous. After all, Wolfsburg paid around €36 million for him. His Champions League debut for Wolfsburg could hardly have gone better. He scored the only goal in a 1-0 victory against CSKA Moscow. A few weeks later, his first Bundesliga goal for the Wolves followed against Bayer Leverkusen. It seemed to have been the right decision, but the euphoria didn't last long. Despite some outstanding moments, like his brace against Ghent in the Champions League round of 16, he never truly found his place in the team. The media even called him a misfit in the squad. Then came the frustration. Wolfsburg was not the ambitious team he had hoped for, and by the summer of 2016, he wanted out. He openly expressed his desire to leave, which did not go down well with either the club or the fans. Every time he stepped onto the field, he was booed, and he later admitted that the first half of the 2016-17 season was the worst of his career. He was stuck in a team he did not want to be in, and his performance suffered as a result. Draxler's time at Schalke had been full of promise and excitement, but his move to Wolfsburg turned out to be a mistake. The boy who was once considered Germany's next big talent was struggling to find his place. He desperately needed a fresh start, and that's when PSG came knocking. PSG put €42 million on the table to get him from Wolfsburg, and suddenly he was in the French capital, ready to conquer Ligue 1. And guess what? He did. Draxler wasted no time and made an immediate impact. On January 7th, 2017, he made his first appearance for PSG in the Coupe de France against Bastia, and boom, in the 89th minute, he slotted the ball into the net as if he had been doing it forever. Just 1 week later, he made his League One debut, and guess what? Another goal! PSG won 1-0 against Rennes, and at that point, it looked like the French league was going to be Draxler's playground. Then came February 14, Valentine's Day, but PSG had no love to spare. They went into berserker mode in the Champions League round of 16 against Barcelona and won 4-0. And yes, Draxler was on the score sheet again. The guy was living his dream. A few weeks later, he scored against Marseille in Le Classique and then opened the scoring in the Coupe de la Ligue final against Monaco. It's safe to say his first months in Paris were spectacular. But then the story took a turn, and not a good one. In the summer of 2017, PSG decided to break the bank. Not just once, but twice. Neymar arrived for a world record fee, and then they also signed some teenager named Kylian Mbappe. Here was the problem. Both Neymar and Mbappe preferred to play on the left side, exactly where Draxler also preferred to play. When PSG had to choose between their €222 million and €180 million investments or Draxler, well, Julian got a seat on the bench with the best view of the pitch. Fast forward to 2020, and Mauricio Pochettino takes the helm. Finally, a glimmer of hope. Pochettino changed the system to a 4-2-3-1 and deployed Draxler more centrally in attacking midfield. The result? Solid performances, a contract extension until 2024, albeit with a pay cut, and it looked like he was getting back in form. Then, boom! PSG signs Lionel Messi. Yes, if Neymar and Mbappe weren't enough to push Draxler out of the team, he now also had to compete with perhaps the greatest player of all time. His playing time disappeared faster than a magician's rabbit. 9 league appearances in the season. 9. It was clear there was no place for Draxler in the PSG attack, and it got even worse. PSG's transfer strategy was pure chaos. They kept signing players for positions where Draxler could have shone, reducing him to a luxury option instead of a key player. At this point, you had to ask yourself, what if Draxler had never moved to Paris? Would he have become one of Germany's best attacking players? Because let's be honest, when he does play, the quality is still there. He just needs a team that really uses him. And that is Draxler's story at PSG. An exciting start, a frustrating middle, and a whole lot of what if at the end. Draxler could have had a great career, but he was a little too comfortable. You know that feeling when you have a well-paying job that's not too strenuous, and you just feel, well, comfortable. That was Julian Draxler at PSG. The club threw money at him. He lived in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and every now and then he got to play with the first team. But here lies the problem. Comfort can ruin a career. After Messi arrived, Draxler was just a ghost at PSG. He wasn't injured. He wasn't out of form. He just wasn't needed anymore. Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, Di Maria. How was he supposed to compete with that? He had two options, fight or leave, and he chose option 3, just chill. Maybe he thought things would change. Maybe he trusted the wrong coaches, or maybe he just didn't care. Whatever the reason, he stayed, even though his minutes dwindled. And that's the frustrating part. He wasn't bad. Every time he played, you could still see the silky dribbles, the precise passes, the intelligence on the ball. But you can't build a career on occasional flashes of brilliance.
Then came the injuries. Nothing dramatic, but always those small setbacks that sidelined him for weeks. A strain here, a muscle injury there, it all added up. And by the time he was fit again, PSG had already moved on. At some point, you had to ask yourself, was Draxler even trying anymore? Or was he just cashing paychecks? Every player reaches a point where they have to ask themselves, what am I even doing here anymore? For Draxler, that moment came far too late. By 2022, he had completely faded into the background at PSG. The club was bringing in new stars every summer, and Julian, he was just, well, there. Now and then a few minutes in the cup, maybe a rare start in Liga when half the team was injured. But that was it. Even the PSG fans had stopped waiting for his comeback. He was no longer the exciting talent they had signed for €42 million. He was just a name on the squad list. And what does a club do with a player it no longer needs? It loans him out. The unsuccessful loan and the final chapter in 2022, Draxler was sent to Benfica. A fresh start, a new league, new fans, the perfect chance to prove himself. Instead, it became a nightmare. Injuries, inconsistency, and just 18 appearances all season. And worst of all, Benfica ended the loan early because he was injured. Back in Paris, it was clear there was no place for him, so he had to leave. But where to? No top European clubs were interested anymore. And then came the surprising decision: Qatar. In September 2023, he signed with Al Ahly SC. And with that, his chapter in European football came to an end. Now at 30 years old, he played in Qatar. But for most fans, his name will always be accompanied by an asterisk. Not as a legend, not as a flop. His story is a cautionary tale, a tragic example of how talent is not enough. It requires grit, it requires ambition, and it requires the will to leave your comfort zone. Draxler had everything to become one of the best. He had the technique, the game intelligence, the elegance on the ball, but he also had the comfort. He had the well-paying job on the bench, the beautiful city, and the carefree life. And these amenities became the chains that shackled his career. His name will not be remembered for his unforgettable goals. It will be remembered for the question, what if? What if he hadn't chosen Wolfsburg? What if he had fought after the Neymar transfer? What if he had left PSG sooner? What if he had sought out the pain, the challenge and the pressure instead of the comfort? He could have left a legacy as one of the greatest German players, but instead he leaves a legacy of untapped potential, and that is the greatest tragedy in football. But what do you think? Should he have left PSG sooner? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Also, check out our 2 videos on Dennis Undav, the German striking hope, and Ronaldo Nazario, the Brazilian superstar. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay on the ball.